What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a Gridlife Love Letter for Shadow of the Colossus. I am joined by the founder and executive editor of OKBeast.com, Blessing Adeoye Jr. How are you doing, sir?
Yo, what's up? How's it going?
I'm just really excited to talk about this game because no one at Gridlife Digest likes it because it's a PlayStation 2
Uh,
game, and they're wrong, but I'm
yeah,
excited
they
to get
are.
into it. Especially our dad, Max Meyer. He went into it not knowing anything whatsoever, and he absolutely despises it. I'm like, just hold on, but no, he couldn't get through it. So I'm pretty excited to talk about it in depth.
Awesome.
So to just kind of get right into it, what was your initial experience with the game? When did you play it, and what mark did it leave on you that very first playthrough?
So the first time I played Shadow of the Colossus, I want to say I was in high school for sure, and I want to say this is around 2007, 2008.
Hmm.
And so this is like years after the game had come out, and I had never heard of it. I I was a kid who had a PS2 up until like 2011. So I didn't get a PS3 until 2011. So like at that time in my life, I was late to like every single trend. Um, and I remember I had a friend named Addison who I would borrow games from all the time. And I remember one day I went to his house. He was like, "Hey, dude, you should borrow these two games." And the two games were Shadow Colossus and Metal Gear Solid 3.
Wow,
Um, yeah,
holy
and
crap!
like I so those games I never played them before. Never really heard of them before.
Yeah.
Like I was into video games, but I was like an N64 kid, and so like that's really all I knew.
Hmm.
Um, and I remember getting home that week and like I can't remember which one I played first. I want to say I played Metal Gear Solid 3 first. Um and the way I describe this week is like the week that changed my video game life
That's
forever
so
because like those
incredible.
yeah, because like I describe Metal Gear Solid 3 as the game that kind of opened my eyes. That opened my eyes to video games as a storytelling medium, whereas
Absolutely.
Shadow of Colossus opened my eyes to video games as an art form. Like those are two very pivotal games for me to play. And so yeah, I played Shadow of Colossus and I absolutely like I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know it was a game about fighting giants. I didn't know anything about it. All I knew
Mhm.
was that it was a game that he wanted me to play. And so I got home, played it, and yeah, like went into that first cutscene, still confused. Rode around my horse a bit. Was like, okay, what is this? And then like it's interesting because the game is open world, right?
Mhm.
The game is it's like this open world game where you go around, you take out 16 different colossi. And like the premises sort of explained to you in the beginning, sort of like it doesn't get too descriptive. It's not like very over your head with like what the story is. It's like, hey, you got to go around, slay these things, whatever. Go ahead. Um, and so me being the kid I was, I didn't really pay attention to the cutscene. I was just like, yo, get me into this game. I want to play some stuff. And I didn't know the thing where you raise your sword in the air so that the line shines off your sword and points you
Yes.
to Colossus. I had no idea about that. And so like the first Colossus, I just like thankfully the game is designed in a way where if you just go straight, you just end up at the first Colossus. And so like I just
Hmm.
went straight because I was like, well, I don't know where to go. I'm just gonna go straight because it seems like this is where the game kind of is leading me to. And so I went straight. I did the climb thing. I was like, okay, cool. It seems like I'm supposed to make my way up the structure. Made my way up there. Saw the first Colossus, and immediately was like, yo, this game is mad interesting. Like I like even in 2007 where like the PS3 was out and we're getting
Hmm.
games like Uncharted and like BioShock and stuff like that, like I was still enamored by the grand nature of this game. Like this game was super felt super bigger than life. It felt super huge, and like that itself was super interesting and blew my mind at first playthrough.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, where it really struck me was also that first Colossi fight. Just when it turns around and looks at you, that's when I knew like immediately like this game is something special. It's
Oh
it's a,
yeah.
it's a feeling that I really have never felt before. Like it's just I don't know. It's really hard to describe, but yeah, Shadow of the Colossus is a game I always knew about. I always knew it was good and it's considered a cult masterpiece or whatever. But it was really my first experience with it is with the remake, and I think which is an
Mhm.
interesting experience to have. I do definitely want to go back and play the original, at least the PS3 version, to just to kind of compare and contrast. But yeah, even now, not having played the original, like I still think this game is a masterpiece. Like it is absolutely, I was enamored by it from start to finish, and I really need to get on playing the original.
Yeah, man. Like though it's hard because going back to the original, after playing this new game would be very difficult. Like they're the
Yeah.
exact same game. Like the crazy thing about this remaster slash remake or whatever you want to call it is that like the game code wise, it's all still the exact same game. They just found out like a way to replace all the assets while still keeping that same game. And so like you have people with like complaints of like this game it's hard to control or like the camera is iffy or like those like complaints that you would have for a PS2 game if you're playing a PS2 game in 2018.
Hmm.
But that's because like it still is that PS2 game. Just like the visuals have been redone, but the actual game is one for one, like the same code, the same everything, which is like mind blowing. But still, I think shows the power of what that game has because replaying it again in 2018 on my PS4, like I was still like, yo, this game is masterfully done. Like like a big part of that game is the art and the presentation. And to see that taken and upscaled and to see the same base game still remain the same, I think speaks volumes to the original design of that game. For me at least, it can still hold up and still stand on its own.
Yeah. So yeah, like you said, a common complaint is the controls. Do you think that the controls are a problem, and especially the camera, or do you think it actually adds to the experience? Because I think if it were to have more competent controls, it would actually be too easy and so like diminish the effect. Do you think that would be a problem, or do you think it's fine how it is?
I think the controls are perfect how it is. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, when I played this PS4 version, when I first started playing, it didn't feel right at all because they added modern controls.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was playing it and I was like, I don't understand how. Oh wait, then I went back into the menus and like for the first like 30 minutes of me playing this game, it was me switching back and forth from modern to the classic controls because I was like, well, the modern controls they fix some things and make some things harder. Like riding on your horse, pressing triangle to do that did not feel right to me at all. And like some of the movements you're able to do with modern controls just didn't feel right to me. That I changed it back to classic, and I was like, okay, this is what I know and love.
Mm-hmm.
And I get I get why people will be annoyed with controls because like it's very unintuitive. It's triangle to jump. It's like you have to press like I think it's R1 to if you're using the classic controls, you have to press R1 to like hold on to a surface.
Yeah.
You have to charge your jump, do all these weird things. But yeah, like you said, I think it's the controls that make the game what it is because if it controlled like Uncharted, the game wouldn't be a game anymore. There wouldn't be like that fight and that struggle. And that struggle is part of the game. Like and I have the same thing with The Last Guardian, and like I have this conversation with people, and it turns into arguments all the time. Where The Last Guardian, for me, I absolutely love the Last Guardian, and like a big complaint with that game when it came out was the controls. It was the camera. It was like, why would you have like triangle to jump and like the Trico, the giant bird dog creature? It felt so weird to control and all that stuff. And like to me, knowing crap, what's his name, the designer of this game, I don't know
Oh,
why I can't
shoot.
think of his name.
I should have this information, but I don't. Oh, crap.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
If I thought about it for a second, I could come up with it.
okay.
No, maybe not. But knowing the team behind this game, right? A large thing, and this even feeds into Eco, their first game. A large thing with the studio is that they take controls, and because that is an integral part of the experience of the game. That's what makes their games unique. Is that they control in a unique way. Like if you're playing Eco or if you're playing The Last Guardian, like the kid that you play as, like they'll trip over stuff, they'll struggle to like run, like there's like a wind up to when they're running, like there's a bunch of intricacies about how they control that's counterintuitive to gameplay design, but I think adds a lot to presentation and feel and what's more important to these games.
And the immersion.
Yeah, immersion. Like for example, in Shadow Colossus, if you get hit by a creature, if you get hit by Colossus really hard, your character will lay there for like a good like 10 seconds before getting up, right? And like that was, and I didn't remember that until I got to like the ninth or eighth Colossus, whatever Colossus is, like the bull thing. I got hit by it, flung me across the map, and like my character just stayed there, lied down for like a good like long. It felt like forever. Like for a video game, it felt like forever. But it's like you're just like waiting there, waiting for your character to get up, and it's like, is this a glitch? And he like slowly just like gets up, and it's like, oh no, they meant to do this because that adds to the immersion, that adds to the sort of realism they're going for. Same thing with in The Last Guardian. If you fall from a large distance, when your character gets up, their leg will be like broken, like what, not
Hmm.
broken, but like they'll be limping for like a good like 20 seconds. When you walk, they'll walk slower because he's like feeling his leg and he's like, oh, my leg hurts. And like in reality, like his both his legs, maybe his whole body would be broken from a giant fall. And in a regular video game, you would either lose health or die, or like you would it wouldn't you wouldn't be affected. Like the fact that they coded in like a limp that you do for 20 seconds is counterintuitive to gameplay, because nobody wants to go through that. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to be like, okay, now for 20 seconds I got to just like lean walk. But in this game, in these games, they really take that into consideration, and those things that are counterintuitive from a control aspect, I add a lot to the games with it, as far as immersion. And so like the control scheme, the way the character feels when they're climbing, the way you struggle when you're climbing a Colossus, all of that feeds in to the feel of the game and what the game is trying to do in the core intent of the game, which is like Shadow Colossus is a game about struggle and is a game about like trying to conquer these giant monsters, giant colossi, and having the player actually feel that struggle that the wanderer, the character, is going through, I think goes a long way into actually like providing a real feel of struggle in that game.
Yeah, yeah, like you said, like it connects the character to the player in ways that most games really don't. I really appreciated that in Assassin's Creed Origins last year, when you did fall off of something, um I can't remember his name right now, but he would limp for like a little bit. It wasn't
Oh
quite to
yeah,
the extent of Shadow of the Colossus, but just having that little detail just makes it feel so much more natural and so much more organic.
yeah,
And
it's so cool.
yeah, it's really cool. And something I really appreciate about this game is how just barren the world is. Usually you think of open world games, you want it to be populated and you want it to feel alive, but this game has such a beautiful sense of loneliness that I can't say I've really experienced in any other title before.
Yeah.
Do you think that this was for the best, or do you think it should have been like populated with like more animals or anything, or does the straight and narrow path of just follow the light, go to this Colossus and fight it, repeat, is that the most effective way for this game to have been executed?
I think it's for sure the most effective way for them to do it,
Hmm.
because I feel like the one, it's unique, it sets the game apart. The fact that like this world is so empty, there's no minions, there's no enemies. Like the only enemies are these 16 bosses, and so like those are really the only fights you're getting into. I think it cements also that this isn't a game about combat, it's a game about puzzle solving and exploration. And it breaks up the game in a very nice way, where the flow of the game is essentially like you search for a Colossus, you kill it, you get returned back to the starting point. You search for the next Colossus, you kill that one, and you do that over and over again. And the spaces between all the Colossi, I think, are essential for like digesting like each experience. Like after each Colossi, you have that long period of like, okay, now I get to just like ride my horse around this beautiful empty land and like kind of take in the environment and kind of have this serene experience and kind of meditate on what just happened, while you're like on your way to the next colossi. And you get to do that for each colossi, and I think it helps that emptiness and that uh lack of bulk within between each colossi helps you to really take in what's happening between each fight. And so yeah, I think that's for sure an amazing choice. And I think we even see how that influenced games going forward. Whether it's like The Last Guardian, obviously, or whether it's like games like Journey, where like Journey is a game with I don't think there are enemies in Journey, but like
No,
the
it's
game,
just
when you think of
it's just the
Journey, you're not thinking
platforming
about
and
like
puzzle solving
enemies.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so yeah, no, I absolutely love that choice.
Yeah, I really wish more games would take that stance, because it's an open world, but the pacing is kept intact because it's so
Yeah.
simple. A lot of games need to trim the fat off themselves. So you talked about kind of how more modern games are using Shadow as an inspiration still today. What's your
Hmm.
favorite example of another title taking kind of the foundation of Shadow and changing it and shifting it to its own benefit?
I think I think the best example I can give is Zelda,
Mm,
Breath of the Wild,
mm-hmm.
which is like now has become my favorite game of all time. Like, and it's funny to see how Zelda influenced Shadow, which in turn influenced Zelda. Because like if when you're playing Shadow Colossus, you can see a lot of the Zelda influence, whether
Absolutely.
it's like just the main character with like his bow and arrow and the sword and his horse, like from like that main concept of it, to the world, to like how kind of dark like the shadow people are, like feel like they're taken straight out of a Zelda game.
Hmm.
um uh there's so in Breath of the Wild, I think, did that thing where we're just talking about like the environment and how kind of like empty and serene it is. And Breath of the Wild kind of does that same thing where Breath of the Wild is by no means empty, but it is like it feels open and airy, and like there is this kind of serene feeling to where while you're exploring the environment. And it is a game where like there are the four divine beasts, which are pretty much kind of like four colossi,
Yeah, it's
right?
pretty
They're like
blatant.
four, it's pretty blatant. Yeah, they're like the divine beasts are basically beasts, and like they're in fact they're like beasts made of stone. They're
Yeah,
basically
and they have
um
big eyes.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And wow, it's crazy now that I think about it. I'm pulling all these different things, but like when you defeat a divine beast, it has that laser thing, which kind of acts the
Holy
same
crap,
as
you're
like
right. I didn't even think
when you
about
defeat a
that.
Colossus. Yeah, like you have the same light go up when you beat a Colossus, and so like there that I think that direct influence helped make Breath of the Wild such an amazing game. Like, I mean, it even goes as far as the fact that like the divine beasts are puzzles that you're solving, just like the
Hmm.
Colossi are puzzles. Um, but yeah, like that, I think more games could take after both Shadow Colossus and Breath of the Wild, and the fact that like the premise of both games are so simple, right? You get into Shadow Colossus and it's like, hey, defeat these 16 colossi. That's all you're doing. That's the only thing you're going to do. You're just going to travel to these 16 different colossi, beat them, and the game's over. And Breath of the Wild does the same thing of like, hey, defeat Ganon. That's all you're going to do. If you want to get these four divine beasts, that'll help you out. But really, we just want you to defeat Ganon. And I think more games could take from that and kind of add to their own simplicity. Like, I don't want to hate on Far Cry 5 because I've been trying to stay away from the subject of Far Cry 5.
I fucking love
But
Far Cry 5. I just want to put that out there for everyone else.
okay, so this isn't gonna be a one-sided conversation then.
Yeah.
Then like Far Cry 5 is a game that I played and I bounced off of pretty hard because like after quite a few hours I was kind of just like I can't do this anymore. Now like I love the Far Cry franchise in general. Like
Hmm.
Far Cry 3 I absolutely love. Far Cry 4 I enjoyed. Far Cry 5, there's something about it where I was like, this feels too overwhelming for me. This feels like there's too much here,
Hmm.
in terms of like information that's being presented to me. In terms of this world doesn't feel fun for me to kind of traverse around because like I'll put my car on auto drive and I'll get shot by NPCs immediately. You're like that.
Hmm.
There's a clunkiness to exploring the world that I didn't like. Um, I think there's something to be said about the way Shadow and Breath of the Wild go about telling the player, hey, we just want you to explore the land and get a feel of the land. And it's not about getting a feel of the different tasks we want you to do. It's not about getting a feel of the different enemies and different all this stuff. No, we just want you to really take in the world and really just like kind of chill here, and have a relaxed experience. And I want more games to do that because I feel like that's such an important thing to get down. Like because I feel like most games don't do that. Most games are doing like the Far Cry thing of
The
like, hey,
checklist.
give the players a bunch of things to do, give them a checklist, give them activities, and like that's part of the reasons why Far Cry 3 was so awesome is because there's a lot of things to do, and that's part of the reasons why I love games like GTA 5 or GTA in general, like another one of my favorite franchises. There's a lot of things to do in those games, but at the same time, and I think what even GTA gets down is that there's a way to create a world where the player feels like they're traversing through it naturally, and in a way that's not like interfering with their play.
Yeah, and there's a very defined beginning, middle, and end with GTA. Like, even though it's open world, it
Mm.
has its pacing and it keeps it intact, which I really enjoy. I know we're just mainly talking about Shadow today, but just to go off on Far Cry for a sec, I actually had the opposite reaction. I felt that 4 was kind of a maelstrom of, like, do this, do that. Like, here's all these hunting
Mm.
activities, here's all these races. In 5, I feel myself, like, just naturally kind of almost like getting out of the car and even just exploring on foot because yeah, like you get shot by NPCs really quick, but that's led me to get out and explore more naturally. And I found
Mm.
that has made the world feel way more organic, and almost have more of a Breath of the Wild feel to it. Even though you do have a map and you can see very clearly all the activities, but I've felt way less bogged down with crap to do right out of the gate in 5 than 4, and somewhat 3. 3, it was kind of a new thing because that was a pretty dramatic departure from 2.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd even compare Far Cry 5 to 2 in a lot of ways, but yeah, I felt that Far Cry 5's world is even more organic and real feeling than all of the rest of them. But yeah,
I will say I did feel some of that when I first started playing of like um I think the first thing I did when I actually got into the open world was like I walked around and there was like a guy being held hostage
mhm.
by some of the cultists, and you free him. And like I freed him, and he was like, "Oh, thanks for freeing me. By the way, like I have a stash that's over here, and like and so you can go to the stash that's marked on your map." And like I think that organic nature of kind of uncovering the map was a big step up from like just like towers, using the towers to kind of just like fill the icons on your map.
Yeah, so many icons. And
Yeah.
thank you, Ubisoft, for discovering that minimaps actually suck.
Yeah.
I don't know if you share this opinion, but I've always hated minimaps, and I'm so glad that people are finally using, like, maybe actually compasses are really good because it actually engenders exploration for real instead of just looking at the top right of your screen for 90 hours and just driving in a straight line. Anyway, to get back more on topic though, since this is my first time playing the game, I found myself completely enamored by the soundtrack. What is your favorite like area, or rather, what's your favorite piece of music in the game?
Mm. I wish I knew the name of the song. I think it's for either the second or third Colossus, but it's
Mm,
very. I'm pretty sure it's the second, where it's like super frantic. It's during the battle. Um, the the great thing about the Shadow Colossus soundtrack is that it varies, right? It when you're exploring the world, it's very calm, it's very chill, it's very ambient. And then when you get into a fight with the Colossus, like when you first come in contact with the Colossus, there's a certain music, right? There's like a
mhm,
certain battle music, but it's like chill battle music. Then when you actually like get into the fight with the Colossus, it ramps up and it turns into this like big grand thing of like, oh, is he going to finally like kill him or whatever. In fact, what I'll even say, a piece of music I really like, and it's not necessarily because of the music itself, it's because of how the way the music is used, is right when you defeat a Colossus. It's always the same track, but it's this weird kind of jarring transition of like you go from the fight music, which is very like grand and very frantic and very like intense. Then you, as soon as you get that last stab on the Colossus, that like killing stab, the music then just transitions to like this kind of sad choir singing.
mhm,
And it's an interesting choice because normally in a game when you win you usually get victory music. You usually like you would expect like trumpets or like the Final Fantasy victory fanfare or something like
mhm,
that. Whereas in Shadow Colossus, you get like this like sad violins and like these sad kind of choir singing, and it's like it it's the antithesis to what you would expect from any other game. And it fits perfectly because Shadow Colossus is kind of like this game about the morality of killing these creatures to save somebody you love. And so like as a player, you're just like, well, I just want to kill these things. And within the game's story, it's like, well, is killing these things really a good thing, or is this something that you should be doing? Are you unleashing a curse? Are you killing these innocent creatures? And the music that plays right when you kill a Colossus kind of brings the feel of that. It kind of turns the game from a video game, which the previous song was doing, to a hey, like look what you just did kind of thing. And it also accompanies the fact that like after each Colossus that you kill, you kind of get like these evil essence kind of things that flow into your body. And so it accompanies that pretty well too. But yeah, that after victory music is pretty good.
yeah. Other games are like, congratulations. Shadow's like, do you hate yourself?
Yeah.
And it's used so beautifully, and then you see in the end that yeah, it was not for all the right reasons.
Hmm.
Yeah, just such an incredible just contrast. And now that I'm thinking more about Zelda, I almost wish Zelda took more cues, especially because I love how colorful and like bright Zelda is, but I would actually
Yeah.
also really like to see it with that kind of muted aesthetic too. But I don't know, maybe we'll see in the next Zelda game or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
Twilight Princess is pretty much that.
it
Like
really is.
Twilight Princess is basically Shadow Colossus, but Zelda,
Hmm.
in terms of like aesthetic and
Aesthetic.
design.
Yeah, and it was better for it, I think.
Yeah.
So now I'm just kind of a very simple question. What's your favorite fight in the game? Which
Mm.
Colossus do you like the best?
I
mechanically.
was thinking about this when I was playing, and it's hard because I like them all pretty much.
Hmm.
Um, but like I think number I can't remember which number it is. It might be three. No, it can't be three. No, three is the guy with like the hammer kind of
Yeah,
thing.
3 is the really
Um,
gigantic one.
I think the bird, like the first,
The bird's awesome. Yeah.
the bird is awesome. Where you're like over a lake and you're like in a
Mhm.
lake fighting him. Um, his is great because I remember my first time coming in contact with him, I was just like, yo, I think that's when the game really picked up the first time I played it. Where I was
Hmm.
like, well, these things are diverse and like these are not what I expect. And there is a certain speed when you kind of grab onto his wing and he's flying, the speed and kind of like the like just how big his wing is when you're
Yeah.
climbing on top of it. It's like, yo, this is crazy. I remember getting a screenshot, and it's like the best screenshot I ever got in a game of me just hanging off his wing and looking like a speck compared to this giant creature.
Could you send me
Um,
that so I can post it right here?
oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, I'm gonna
It's on my
edit
Twitter,
that.
or it's actually on my PS4 also. So I'll find it and send it to you.
All right, thank you very much.
Um, but yeah, dude, that fight is awesome.
There, I had a moment in that fight when I realized what you're supposed to do. I'm like, oh, and then yeah, you
Yeah,
just feel the speed as it just thunders towards you. Like it's such a visceral feeling. I know visceral is a buzzword, but I feel that a lot when playing this game.
yeah.
I gotta think back. Probably, I think it's number 6, the one where you're going into like the cavern. It's one of the only ones that, at least in the first set, that actively are looking to kill you, and it kind of makes you realize that like, wait, most of these are just kind of defending themselves, but
Yeah.
this one wants you dead, and like this that feeling of just, oh crap, like you have to, it's faster than you even when you're running at top speed, and it's just this like terrifying, like almost chills that at least I got the first time playing it.
Is this the one that shoots thunder from his tail, or is that a different one?
No, he just kind of like uses his fist and kind of just like smashes down. You have to
Oh, is
you
it
hide back in
that?
like you hide back in the little cove, and it ducks down and like looks
Oh,
between the
yeah.
pillars. Yeah, just like
This is like
that
the guy with the
imagery.
beard.
Yeah, he's got the beard and you climb up on it. But yeah, just that imagery is like really powerful. And then the only one I really didn't like, I think it was number 4, where you go out. It's the like hill structure, and you have to make him look down, and then you gotta go around and then climb
Oh
up his.
yeah,
Yeah, that one I found actually pretty tedious. That's the only one I like looked up a guide for, because like, how on earth
yeah.
do you do this? But yeah, most of them are actually really cool and really creative. Yeah,
The, the,
go
the
ahead.
thing I like about that one is that like when you first discover him, he's just like you like turn a corner and he's just like there, just sitting, just like chilling.
He's just
It's like,
chilling.
oh, I guess the fight's starting now.
Yeah,
I just like discovering him.
yeah. He's one of the ones that are like, he's just kind of minding his own business, like, and I'm just
Yeah.
going over and just killing him. Yeah, it's that one did a great job of kind of illustrating the themes, but I found it tedious to play.
Hmm.
So man, I'm just thinking about it now. Like, I already want to replay this game, which is nuts. But do you feel that there's any studio working now besides Team Eco that could get away with making a game like this in 2018, 2019? Like, just very minimalist and kind of artsy? Or are they kind of the only ones who can pull it off at a $60 price tag?
Ooh, at a $60 price tag,
Yeah.
I don't know, because like I think right now we get a lot of things like this at a um at a smaller price or from independent developers.
Hmm.
Like I just played Cube 2 and I absolutely love that game, and it's essentially Portal, and it feels of like the same kind of scale as a port. For some reason I feel like Portal is similar to Colossus in some ways as far as like what it's doing skill wise and what the gameplay is like. Both these games are puzzle games. I feel like nowadays it would be hard to sell a puzzle game for $60 just because of what people expect. Even though I absolutely love puzzle games, they're like one of my favorite genres, and so it kind of sucks that that people don't really consider them as high budget or as high value.
Hmm.
But as far as like something minimalist and something kind of more singular
And artsy almost.
in art, I would think Naughty Dog could pull something like this off.
Hmm.
Like something like Left Behind, like Last of Us Left Behind on a grander scale, like across like 13 hours, where it's less combat focused and more like exploration focused and story focused. Like the parts of Uncharted that aren't the shooting, like Uncharted 4, that aren't the shooting. I feel like Naughty Dog could pull something like that off. Um, but yeah, as far as like something minimalist and something singular, I feel like today it'd be a lot harder just because of what we expect. But I think that's fine. I think since a lot of indie devs are attempting things like this, uh, I think we're going to get. I think it's not far off before we get another game that's like Shadow Colossus, like a direct inspiration from Shadow Colossus that kind of blows everybody away. Because we already gotten a few with like games like Journey, which Journey was more like Eco, but it still had the Shadow influence, or games like Titan Souls, which was a direct
Yeah,
influence.
it's very direct.
Um, yeah, that people enjoyed, or even like there's a game that just came out, Extinction, which hasn't been getting great reviews, but this is another example of something that was directly inspired. And I think there's another game that's like something of gods in the shadow gods or something like that. I forget what it's
In
called.
the show, I don't know. Yeah,
Uh, yeah,
I'd have to look it up.
it's not
But
in the shadow. It's something of gods, but I can't remember what it is.
I feel like also with this remake, it might introduce a new generation of people who might not be familiar with it to maybe go
Hmm.
on and then make that, spiritual successor or whatever. But what do you see this specific team making? Because like it took them so long to
Hmm.
make The Last Guardian. Like, is it going to be kind of a similar styled experience? Are they going to, kind of tilt to something different? This is totally pure speculation, of course, but I'm really curious to what they have cooking up their sleeves.
So I've been trying to keep track of this team because like they're not called Team Eco anymore. I forget what they're called.
Hmm.
But they have a new name. They seem to be still working on stuff, and I want to know what like how they could come out and be like, okay, well, here's a new game, because Last Guardian, as everybody knows, had like this tenuous development cycle. Like it was announced forever. It took forever to come out. And so like I assume the next time that this team announces a new game, they'll they'll have to like be like, okay, and it's out this fall or something like that. Like they'll have to
Hmm.
announce it and immediately give a release date. As far as what it'll be, I think they could kind of carry on this legacy, because like Eco, Shadow Colossus, and Last Guardian have similar themes. They have a similar feel. They have
Aesthetic.
similar gameplay structure, aesthetic, all that stuff. And I can see them like they're not like the same. They're kind of the same universe. I would assume they're all in the same universe, but they're not part of the same series or whatever. But I
Hmm.
can see them carrying on with something in this same universe. And if you go to their website, I wish I knew their name. I don't know the name,
I'm trying to
but if
find it, but I can't.
if you go to their website, there's like a screenshot of like, I think it's like a girl in like some type of colossal being. I can't remember exactly, but it seems like I don't think that's from a game they're working on. I think that just might be like a promotional, like, hey, this is kind of the feel our studio has, kind of thing, or like an homage to the previous games. But I could see them doing. I'm trying to think, because I don't think they would do Shadow Colossus 2.
No, no, they can never do that.
Yeah. Um I don't They could do another like eco kind of game where it's a boy and a girl. Maybe they do like a boy, a girl, and a big pet. I don't know.
Just combine them all, and then they fight
I think
16 or 17 giant monsters.
Oh yeah, and then,
Yeah.
and then they fight. I can see like you play as a giant monster or something like that. Like I think they'll do something because they seem to have this infatuation with this minimalistic style and giant beasts, and uh the thing that all their games have in common is relationship, right? Whether it's Eco's relationship with the princess, I think Yorda was her name, or Wanderer's relationship with his dead sister or dead lover and his
Hmm.
horse, I guess.
Yeah. Does it ever say is if what the relationship between them are?
It never says, but I think in one of the interviews or in one of the book, actually no, in my Shadow Colossus case, I think on the back of the case it refers to the girl as his lover, but I'm like, I don't think that's canon. I don't think that was ever said
Hmm.
for the like this remake case, and so I don't know if that's canon or if that was an accident. Um, but yeah, aside from that, it's never said. And then yeah, there's the relationship with in the Last Guardian between the boy and Trico. And so yeah, the next game will definitely have like some kind of relationship aspect to it. Um, of what kind, I'm not sure. How it'll play out throughout the game, I'm not sure, but it'll be something cool. That's all I know. Like it'll be something that carries on this legacy, and something that I think will, as soon as people see it, people are gonna be mind blown, because people were mind blown when they saw The Last Guardian. And our expectations were kind of tempered as like millenniums passed before that game came out. But I think a new concept like that would kind of bring people back and get people interested.
So I did end up finding it's the studio is called Gen Design.
Gen design,
I see. Yeah, I'm looking at the image. They said it's very much in the similar vein. But yeah, it's Ueda, or however you pronounce it, is the director.
yeah,
But yeah, I'm just with the fervor that Last Guardian had. Like I'm really anxious looking from an outside perspective, because I never played Last Guardian. I definitely want to now after playing Shadow. But yeah, just looking like what could they do to gain that level of hype again, and I don't think it would be that hard because they have their similar style and they're similar fans. But yeah, definitely interested in what they're gonna do next, because they're pretty unique.
yeah. It's I'm looking at their website and the image is gone, which is surprising to me. Oh wait, if you go on Google Images, it comes up. So like, it's an image of, I'm trying to open up a bigger one so I can actually see it. It's like a girl on like this kind of, it looks like the Shadow Colossus actually kind of thing.
Like the
where it's
altar.
like this glowing white girl on this altar, and then there's like a hand for like a beast, which kind of looks like a Last Guardian kind of thing. And so it could be an homage, because the girl kind of looks like Yorda, the altar kind of looks like Shadow Colossus, and the beast kind of looks like Trico. But yeah, I don't know if there's a small chance it could be a tease for maybe what they're working on next, but I don't know.
It could be like the Kojima Productions, like they have the like skull like astronaut guy. Like that's just kind of their mascot. Because like like that similar aesthetic, and you associate with that with Kojima, you can associate this with the Ueda. But yeah, so for the rest of it, I just kind of want to talk like just general, like what makes you really love this game? Like what is about it that stands out as a masterpiece?
I think it's the way the game as a whole kind of just comes together in such a perfect way. Like it feels like a game that was made with intent and purpose, from the soundtrack to the game design to the concept of like 16 beasts that you got to take down, only boss fights, all that stuff, to the artwork. Like the whole feel of the game felt like something I had not experienced before. And I think it all just comes together super well. Like I think it was the first game I played that was a combat puzzle game. Like I don't think I'd had anything like that before, and so that was new to me. The I think this is the first time I played a game where like I felt something more than only like, oh, that was fun, or oh, I'm addicted to this, or oh, this, like like by the end of the game I was like, huh, like this, for some, like I'm emotional, and like as a kid I didn't feel emotion, not really, but yeah, it just felt different.
It's such a unique emotion too. It's just like this like beautiful melancholy to it.
Yeah, it is. And like there's an element of wonder there too. And like they're even story, like this game doesn't really have a story. Like it has a story, but like it has very few story beats. And like the story beat where like you're on your horse and you jump into the next platform and your horse falls and you're like, oh, my horse is dead. Like that was the thing that got me at the time. That was the thing where I was like, oh, I guess bye to my horse. Like he got me this far. I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, you never cry for Yoshi when you sacrifice him in Super Mario World, but you cry for Aggro.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, this game, like everything around the design of this game, like I could talk about things individually. It's hard for me to like note one thing that makes me excited about this game.
If you got to break it down, go for it.
I don't want to like say what I've said before, because I've talked about the soundtrack. I've talked about sort of okay, let me see. Let me think. There's the whole conceit of the 16 Colossus, which I touched on. I guess the artistic design is something I can touch on a bit, but like I'm not really an artist, but like the aesthetic of the Colossi just feels super cool. Like it felt super cool.
There's kind of ominous, like they don't, their mouths don't move, but they have this like eyes, roar to them, and their eyes they just pierce you.
They're just like static. Yeah, they're like they glow, and it's like they look very creepy, but
they're
at the same
creepy
time,
but also sympathetic.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're creepy but sympathetic, and like you're on top of Colossi or Colossus, and you're looking at their eyes, and you're like, this thing is alive, but at the same time, it's not like
It's
it doesn't feel like a human, but at the same time, it gives off this feeling of like, I know what I'm doing. I'm like, get like let me live kind of thing.
mhm.
Um, and yeah, man, like I think my biggest takeaway was there is nothing like it that I had played before. Like going into Shadow Colossus, it was the first thing that was like Shadow Colossus that I ever played, and from there it really kind of like opened my eyes to like, yo, video games are this bigger thing. Like there have been very few games that I could think of that I played where I was like, wow, video games could be this. The latest one aside from Zelda Breath of the Wild is Florence. I don't know if you play Florence.
I need to play Florence. It's on my list.
Android or on phones. Um, Florence is like this mobile game, and I won't spoil it, but like essentially like this story kind of mobile game. And like I explained it on my podcast, is like it's not a game that's going to. I don't think it's going to blow your mind, or it's not going to be your game of the year. It's not going to be. It's not like this. It's not going to be like a 10 out of 10 experience. It could be for some people, but I think for most people, it's not going to be that. But what it was for me was a game where I finished it and I was like, wow, this is what video games could be. Because of the way it told its story and the kind of story it was trying to tell. It was like a moment where I was like, it was a wow. It was very much a wow moment for me. And Shadow Colossus was very much that of like, yeah, for me, it was a 10 out of 10 experience. This is a beautifully designed game. I loved it, all this stuff. But also it was a moment where I was like, wow, like I was so invested in this. I was so into this. I was so moved by everything that was happening here. And at the same time, I still pushed myself to solve these puzzles and all this stuff. Like there's so many moving parts to what was going on for this very simple game. And that simplicity of it, I think was also a huge factor of just like having me being engaged and being moved by it. And so, yeah, it's this all encompassing thing that kind of moved me. So Shadow Colossus.
Shadow of the Colossus. It's a game I regret not playing earlier, but also I'm kind of okay that I'm glad that the remake exists because it's going to be, it's going to reach and touch so many, new people, but
oh yeah.
I do really regret not playing it sooner because it affected me so deeply. It's a feeling I doubt will ever be replicated because it's so specific to the circumstances that the game presents itself with. It's hard to put into words besides like really like wonder and melancholy and these like more thematic things, but it's not about combat. It defies expectations and like cliches of what you consider like action adventure games. The music is incredible. The simplicity is incredible. It all feels so deliberate. And the fact that, a team came together and was like, this was their vision and they executed it how they wanted. I know there was some like cut content or whatever, but like this feels like a complete vision from a small team. Or do you know how big the team was when it started? Because you don't get this level of like specificity in the vision in big like Bungie or Activision Ubisoft teams.
I think that's also one of the special things about this game, because I think at the time in like 2005 or whenever this game came out, it was like one of the most stunning looking games on the PS2.
I don't know how this ran on the PS2. I'm like looking at it, I'm like, this is insane.
Like I remember playing this game on the PS2, and that's one thing I forgot to mention is that like playing it, I was like, yo, this game looks wild. Like this game is beautiful. Like the way funny enough, at the time I was like, the way the camera controls, it's really cool because like there's like this like motion blur kind of effect to it. I absolutely love the graphics of this game. But yeah, like I think it's this very focused, very unique thing made by I think a bigger team. Like I think the team was actually like I don't want to claim to know the size of Steel, but I do know that at the time for PS2 it was a very impressive game.
Yeah, it is a AAA like big budget title, and you wouldn't see it like this.
It's a game that has like the sensibilities of like an indie game, where like you're like how in the world can something this different and this cool and this unique be a AAA game, and yet somehow it was, and they pulled it off.
Yeah, that's kind of the thought process that led me to like, could a studio do this now? But you really can't. Yeah, like this is
Yeah,
very much
it's
indie
hard.
sensibilities with let's like if let's say just like a like Steven Spielberg would go back and make like a really like small budget art house film, like we
Mm.
wouldn't see that. But yeah, it's just it's more than the sum of its parts, and I'm definitely going to go back and play Aiko and The Last Guardian as soon as possible. It's just 2018 games are just getting flooded on us,
Yeah.
so time is short. But yeah, just it's such a special experience, and I am going to recommend it to as many people as possible. Just try to get through the expectations. Like, yeah, it's a PS2 game; it doesn't control like a modern one, but once you get there, it's quite incredible. I guess I really don't know where to go from here besides just go play it if you haven't. Um, I do you know if there's any like substantive articles like behind the scenes stuff, because that's what I'm really interested in.
Mm.
Um,
I made 2 videos on Shadow Colossus, and while
and
working
they're
on
great,
them,
by the way.
oh, thank you. Uh, you can check those if you're listening. You can check those out on youtube.com/ShowKeyBeast.
There you go.
One is about the themes of Shadow Colossus. The other is about the soundtrack. But while making those videos, I did like a lot of research, and I did a lot of kind of just like looking stuff up. And my biggest resource was YouTube, just like looking up YouTube videos. And there's quite a few YouTube videos kind of just like breaking down like sort of the philosophy and all that stuff of Shadow Colossus. I'm sure if you look up on Google, you'll find articles kind of trying to break down the game. But I the biggest thing I think for me was YouTube and just hearing people talk about the game, because I think different people get different things from the game, which I think is a testament to how much of an art piece it is, how much
Hmm.
of a piece of art it is. Because like everybody kind of gets the same thing from playing Uncharted. Like I love Uncharted 4, but like most of our experiences with Uncharted 4 is similar,
Yeah,
and like we kind of gain the same things from it.
very
I could say the
predictable
same.
beats. Like this part's an emotional moment. This is a fun action scene. Like yeah, it's pretty
Yeah,
predictable.
like it's a fun, like very well polished action game. Indiana Jones like, or if I can say the same thing about Overwatch, right? We all usually get the same thing from Overwatch in terms of the themes and what it's trying to say, and all this stuff. It's a multiplayer game that we have fun with our friends with. Grand Theft Auto 5, like the themes are very straightforward of like American life, living as an American male, all this stuff, masculinity.
Race.
Grand Theft Auto kind of race, like Grand Theft Auto kind of covers a lot of these things, especially like it has a lot of political themes, right? Shadow
Very
Colossus,
much.
I feel like it's one of those games where like you can get a lot of different things from this game. Like it can be interpreted quite a few different ways. The experiences feel very individual. And yeah, I think because of that, when you look up on YouTube or you look up anywhere, like people's thoughts on the games or people's takes on the games, you get like a lot of different answers because the game doesn't feel like it's trying to tell you something specific about politics or the world or people. I think it's trying to tell you a lot of things.
Like, what do you think? What do you think it means? It's
Yeah.
open.
Can I ask you what do you feel like Shadow Colossus is trying to say
See, that's
through
a
its?
that's a great question because it's almost the blatant answer is just kind of dealing with the consequences of your actions, like
Mhm.
willingness to go beyond that edge of morality for people you love. Like there's so many themes related to it, but
Yeah.
overall probably yeah, just like an analysis of what we're willing to do for who we love and what we're willing to sacrifice, even if it's for not the greater good of everyone else but almost our selfish nature. But yeah,
Mm.
it's a very simple story, but there's a lot you can unpack with it. So I guess yeah, just
Yeah.
the morality and relationships really when it comes down to it.
Yeah. One of the things I wish I talked about more in my video, but is the thing I kind of realized as I was making my video and even afterwards, I thought about it more, and I feel like Shadow Colossus is sort of a game about uh game design and what the player uh why we make the player do the things that the player is doing. Because like it is a game where uh within the lore, within the story, the things that the character is doing is wrong, and at every step the character should stop. But us as a player, we're kind of just like, yo, I'm just in here so I can like kill things, or I'm in here so I can progress. I'm in here for the action, for the violence, whatever. And I think part of what Shadow Colossus does is it shows us our violent nature. Because at every step we should probably put the game down. We keep going along with it. It shows us how, as players, we kind of just don't care about what's going on as long as we get to the next thing. As long as we're having fun, as long as we get to the next thing, we kind of just don't care. And within the story, it does exactly what you said, where it shows us what we're willing to do, right? Like the wrong things we're willing to do for the right reasons. Like the nature of humanity and the nature of sacrifice for the ones you love. And yeah, I think you can just keep going from there and just listening to things that the game you feel like the game's trying to tell you, from both a gameplay design and a story aspect. But yeah, look it up. Look up Shadow Colossus on YouTube.
Yeah.
See what you get, people.
Just go down that deep rabbit hole, I imagine. Is there? I wonder if there's a Digino Gaming on that. I'm sure there is at this point.
Oh yeah, there 100% is.
Yeah, I really like those guys.
Yeah.
Because they cite all their sources, so you can go like look up and like really dive deep into any specific game.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I got a lot of homework to do now. Well, I think, is there anything like final thoughts before we close on out?
Man, I don't even know.
I know it's a lot.
Play Shadow of Colossus.
Yeah, if you've gotten this far and haven't played it, do that, please. Like you'll just know what you're getting into a little bit, because a big reason why Max didn't like it is because he had no expectations whatsoever. Don't look up too much, but just know that it's going to play a little differently. It's going to play a little bit antiquated, but just go in, have a great time, and
I'll even say, like, don't go in expecting to love it.
Yeah.
If you're playing for the first time, I mean, even though Noah did. Because like I was telling this to Moises, because me and Moises were having this conversation a while ago on our podcast, because we're kind of talking about how, like, we're talking about games that we haven't played that we think could become one of our favorite things.
That's a really good topic. I'm gonna steal that.
I was talking about Ni no Kuni. I never got to play Ni no Kuni on PS3, and I was like, yo, if I played Ni no Kuni, it would become one of my favorite games. I could tell, just from the way that game looks and the way that the game plays and the way people talk about the game. But I just haven't had the chance. And he noted Shadow Colossus, and one thing I had to bring up was like, hey, like, you're gonna go into this game. This game is not a 2018 game.
No.
It is a 2004 game in a 2018 skin. And so, like, be prepared for the controls to not feel right. Be prepared for it to feel short, or it to feel like there's not as much content, because like games were made in a different way in 2004, right? In 2004, Shadow Colossus was plenty for me. Shadow Colossus felt bigger than life. Shadow Colossus felt huge. Today, Shadow Colossus does feel like more of a indie experience. It feels more like an art piece than it does this huge thing. And yeah, like you gotta go into it with the mindset of like, yo, this is going to feel like an older game, and that's okay. And so be prepared.
Yeah, just as a quick aside, my like game I know I'm going to love but I haven't played yet is Vanquish. I like everything about what Vanquish is doing. I just haven't played it yet. One of these days. And yeah, I'm definitely curious to see what the rest of the Gridlife Digest guys have to say about it. But yeah, you just be prepared, and that's really all I can say.
Sure.
I didn't have any expectations of like, I'm gonna love this, but it just happened. Because I was like, people were saying it's antiquated, it's this and that, but I was like, usually that stuff does kind of turn me off, but in this case it didn't matter, and I just totally became enamored with it. Yeah, so just play it. That's all you can really say. Study it, read about it, and Moises, if you're listening to this, absolutely play it. I'm surprised you haven't just like forced him to do it yet. It's like, all right, if you do not play Shadow, you're out of OK Beast.
I'm just scared because I made him play Undertale and he didn't love it. And so no. I'm like, man, I don't know. I just gotta let him do what he wants. And if he likes it, he likes it. If he doesn't, he doesn't. Because Moises, if you listen to Moises, or if you listen to our podcast, or if you're familiar with Moises, you know that Moises is a troll.
Yes.
So gotta be careful with Moises.
100%. Since this is your first time coming on any of our content, do you just want to plug your stuff? Tell where people can find you.
For sure. If you want to find me, if you have social media, all my social media accounts are at Blessing Jr. That's BLESSING JR. I tweet a lot of crazy opinions that you may or may not disagree with, but if we disagree, then it's okay, because I still love you. Also, you can find all the stuff I make on okbeast.com or youtube.com/okbeast. OKBeast, we do articles, we do podcasts, we do video essays. And so yeah, check out youtube.com/okbeast if you're interested in video essays. Also, check out the OKBeast podcast that I host. We basically just talk about video games, kind of like Gridlife Digest. And so check us out if you're interested. And yeah, I'm Blessing. Hi.
Yeah, definitely follow him on Twitter. You have some great tweets. And
Thank you.
follow us at Gridlife Digest on Twitter and Instagram, at Gridlife Digest Pod on Facebook, so you never miss what's happening. We like to do Gridlife Love Letters every so often when we have something we're really passionate about, but we do have a new episode of Gridlife Digest Weekly every Wednesday at 9 a.m. on podcast services and YouTube. We are working on trying to be a little bit more consistent with our video content. It's just hard. We're all busy. So check that out. Every week, new podcast, new video content. We're going to have some new cool stuff lined up for you. Play Shadow of the Colossus. Check out OK Beast. And we'll see you on the next Gridlife Love Letters.